Welcome to the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcast, please follow, hit the like button, or any subscribes. It really helps us with the algorithms. Santa Cruz Coffee Break is produced by the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum. All opinions are those of the speakers. We invite you to join us on the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF for more fun. Now, let's get on with this installment of Santa Cruz Coffee Break.
I may have to use that
Hubbub's creating a dither.
I'd like to welcome everybody to number 47 or 48 of the Santa Cruz podcast. And we have a really special treat today with Adam Traum and Richard Hoover. And Adam's going to talk to us about his new guitar there off to his right and some other stuff. And I'm sure Richard's going to help with a little bit on how that guitar works. So welcome, Adam.
Well, thank you very much.
Adam.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
And we are more than happy.
I'm delighted to be here and honored to have the great Richard Hoover with us. I was asked if I wanted this beautiful guitar, and so Santa Cruz sent it up to me to try out, and I have to say I just really fell for it. It's an exquisite piece of musical machinery that happens to be beautiful as well. And it's a great compliment to my OM pre-war, which is this is sort of my special home. I keep it home and play jam with friends, drag it out. But this has sort of been my working axe, and I've got some electronics in it. But this is there's something just so special about this instrument. The overtones I get, I don't know if this will even translate on Zoom, but you play a single chord.
Yeah, that translates. So before you go further, tell us what you have there, though.
So this is the HT13.
Okay.
And it's got the mahogany back and sides and the redwood top, the slotted headstock. I love these, but are these butterbean tuners, Richard?
Well, it's kind of confusing out there in the marketplace because some people refer to the more fluted ones as butterbean, but of course a butterbean is kind of amorphous and looks like that. So you'll find people referring to those as butterbean. I should keep it simple. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And it's I'm sure I'm going to get some reflections here, but just so people can kind of see the
ooh la la.
Yeah, that redwood is gorgeous.
It's just gorgeous, and I don't have too many instruments that are this fancy with such fancy inlay. I usually just have simpler stuff. I didn't even put a pick guard on the OM pre-war, just because I liked the way it looked so much. But just people, and I really like the script logo on headstock, and it's just
boy, that's a nice job. You do better than Vanna White.
Yeah.
So Richard, can you tell us anything about that top? Where did the redwood come from, or is there any story behind that?
Yeah, I will. I'm gonna, I sound like a politician here. I'm gonna take advantage to throw in some more information. The redwood is really in keeping with our ethos, our values, our spirit, and that means every piece of wood we use, we know where it comes from, and it would fall in the category of responsibly harvested. And in this case, you correct me if I'm wrong here, if I'm mixing up my stories, Adam, but that is from the Klamath River, and it could be from the dawn of time. It's a tree that would have fallen, let's say, probably natural causes, and rolled into the river, and it would be what we would call sinker, except it happened long enough ago that whatever part of that river was finally meandered, and that became mud, which finally turned into earth, and this was dug up in an excavation. So redwood in itself is super durable, resistant to decay and insect degradation. but also it was an anaerobic environment, meaning that without oxygen, it didn't oxidize or decay. So the benefit we get from that is obviously we're not cutting a living tree to get it. We get a great story, and older wood sounds better than new wood, simply because all the resins have polymerized, become like crystal. You get the advantage of an old guitar when you build with that, as Adam just testified in the sound of this. So I love redwood. You guys know I love the environs. I love the tree, and it's almost separate. I divorced the living tree from the fact that we use the wood. I love redwood as a sound. And in Adam's application as a player, doing fingerstyle, he's accentuating a lot of single notes, and the audience wants to hear separation between the notes and all the nuance he puts into it. So it's a great choice for his playing style. So also, this redwood is one of my 3 loves that's in this guitar. The redwood, which I adore, the H13, which is my personal favorite model, which don't confuse that with quality. That's just my choice, the H13. And the model, the Happy Traum model, is another love of my life, Adam's darling father, Happy Traum. So you've got a nice triple whammy in that one.
I do, yeah. And actually one of the things I really like about this, I mean, it sings when you're playing fingerstyle, like if you're doing like that sort of is its natural habitat in a way for me.
That's great. I didn't know you wrote that.
Disclaimer.
But it will totally take a pick. Like I've been doing some fiddle tunes with my buddy, and it totally works in that setting too. So if you're doing like it just really
justice.
Oh, thank you. But it really just has it can do pretty much anything, and it has a lot of headroom, but just all those subtleties in there, it totally accentuates too. So
thank you. That makes
I'm
really happy. This instrument, of course, it's got a historical precedent. Gibson Nick Lucas model from the late 20s, early 30s. And I don't know how much of their design was intentional and just what was happenstance. But what we've got is I wanted a guitar that really looked like a guitar, not like a squared off Dreadnought or a squared off OM, but a really pretty guitar. In the 1930s, that was a big guitar. Today we'd call it a small body, right? But to get it the volume that a modern player needs, a small guitar doesn't have quite the air volume to have that volume. So we made it deeper front to back, in essence, keeping the small body footprint, but adding air volume, which adds overall sound volume, and it also boosts the bass and the EQ, and it's cute.
It's beautiful.
Adam, I have to tell you that your body changes when you pick that guitar up. There is truly something that happens to you when you pick that guitar up. I noticed it before we got on. You picked it up, and it was like all of a sudden you were just like, oh yeah.
That's beautiful.
Your face changes. I mean, the whole thing. You look thinner. It's great. I mean, go for it.
This is a great marketing tool, Richard.
Yeah, I mean,
get the HT13, you'll look thinner.
I don't know. It's you can hear it.
Yeah.
But the first chord you played, there's just something that happened in your face when you heard it. I can't explain it, but boy, it's evident to the world.
I think he has more hair too.
Yeah,
it could
more
be.
hair up there. Yeah. You can't really tell on camera, but as we get older, things start to I don't have.
Oh,
quite
you're
the-
blessed. You're follicle
I don't have
blessed.
quite the mane that I did, but it's still hanging tough. So I'll take it.
As is said in so many places, all it takes is one more guitar to be happy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The next one.
Yeah, the next one.
But yeah, I know, honestly, so Richard was amazing, and I believe this the OM was earmarked for someone else, and you guys were willing to give it to me instead of someone else. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
The someone else might listen to this, but
Yeah.
it was, Adam was a God thing. I think the world of you. You've spent your whole life, of course, not only admiring but living in your father's shadow. And I see you as standalone, a brilliant lyricist and an awesome songwriter. And
thanks.
and it's always a
Great.
pleasure to be around you. And when you played that guitar and I saw the fit, all other obligations vanished, and I went, okay, you got to have that. It fits for you.
It's if I may, just to hear the sound difference, the two complement each other so beautifully. And this, like, it just sort of has. It's just got such a nice voice, but the two complement each other in such a nice way. Like there's no kind of repetition between the two, I don't think.
That's a wonderful testimonial to why nobody should stop at one guitar.
No, and no one should stop at one Santa Cruz.
Preaching to the choir.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
What a treat and an honor to get to play these amazing instruments. I'm just
Oh, likewise. Is that a Buck Owens model on the couch?
It is.
Yeah.
A friend of mine found this. It's one of their Chinese models. A friend of mine found it at a consignment store or something like that. And it doesn't sound great. It's just kind of like a plywood.
It's unmistakable, though. I don't know when those first came out, but I grew up about 80 miles from Buck Owens and that whole scene, so I remember it well.
But it's a neat little guitar, just because I love Buck Owens and all those classic country guys and those.
That's great.
And those that whole Bakersfield sound is so great that it's cool to have that little memento of Bakersfield.
Have you recorded the HT yet?
I recorded it on the lesson that is coming. That's just about to go live.
The one we have yet to discuss.
The one that we have yet to discuss. I played both of the guitars, and I'm sure more than once I raved about Santa Cruz and how lucky I am to have those instruments to play. So, it's and it records just beautifully. I haven't done an actual sit down recording with it, but I'm planning on it at some point.
Be interesting to get them both in the studio and see how they see which mic sounds great with them, and
oh yeah,
and all that. We just did a podcast with Brandon Lee Adams. Who's,
oh nice.
Yeah, who's if he doesn't have Tony's soul in him, I have nothing. But just the way that you guys approach recording, and you're starting. It's not like you're starting from trying to make it sound good.
Right.
You guys started at this level up here, and the tweaks are so fine, but you really do hear that instrument. I mean, we can hear it over Zoom.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So speaking of guitars, Richard, I was watching something the other night, and I saw Brad Paisley playing. I believe it was the Brad Paisley model.
Yeah, what a coincidence.
And I yeah, I know, shocking, right? But like I immediately heard it and I was like, yeah, that's a Santa Cruz.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank
Like
you.
I heard the like the complexity and the tones, and I was like, oh yeah, that's his Santa Cruz.
Yeah, it comes over on a insurance commercial really well.
I
Oh
know.
man,
It
thank you
does.
for
It
that.
just stands out. It's like there's two speakers on the TV. One of them is playing the guitar and the other one's playing the rest of the stuff. But it's
That's so heartwarming. Thank you.
so isolated. It's so great. It just screams.
Yeah.
Well, this is Adam's show, but you know, of course, I can't help myself here. This is my job. One of the cool things that you just illustrated there, it's actually a myth buster. Some of the larger companies promote their instruments like, well, they're all different, but of course, there's something for everybody. So there's no good or bad guitar. You know, you get the one you need. But the fallacy to that is there are a lot of personal choices in the guitar, like anything you can adjust on your sound system, EQ, volume, presence, tone. But there is a good sounding guitar versus a bad sounding guitar. And it's what you said, it's that articulation, the quality of sound, the rich, full overtones and sustain. That's really our hallmark. And we put extra effort to get that. And I'm always just thrilled when somebody notices it. So thank you for that.
Sure. Yeah. It's,
I would say the thing that is most noticeable to me is in many brands, the differentiation between the various models really is the price tag and not a lot else. Whereas with Santa Cruz, you know, yeah, there are different prices, but it's because of the materials and the detail, and every model has a really, I want to say unique, but a separate voice that appeals to different styles of players or whatever. It's great. I think it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Can you tell us anything about that mahogany? Do you remember anything about the mahogany on his guitar? On that
Sure.
on that HT, Richard?
Did we tell you any story on that, Adam?
no, I actually don't have the backstory, and I know. Yeah, so I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, we you know, I could tell you exactly the story behind your guitar, but I'd rather be accurate and look that up because we're working out of a couple different sources right now. So if you don't mind a bit of a composite story here,
Sure.
there's two things that make older mahogany, or let's just say old mahogany, superior. Is that and it's illustrated by this. We here's a weird analogy. We have a bench and somebody moves off to caretake a parent or go off on their own, and they were tall and somebody short comes in and we cut the legs down so it's ergonomic. And then somebody else comes back in that's taller and we block it up so it fits them. And traditionally, we would put a neck blank. We have a block of mahogany that will yield two necks, and we inventory that. And we got a lot, so we use that to prop up the bench. So in some cases, they're there for, you know, years and years and years. And recently, we went through and pulled those out. And we were like amazed at the quality of the mahogany. And it's only been maybe 15 years, let's say. But trees that grow in natural environments at the pace that God intended are denser, they're prettier to look at, and they're far superior tonally. As we get into the modern day where much of the wood's been harvested and we're looking at a second growth, they're exposed to more sunshine, they grow a lot quicker, they grow less dense, they're lighter in color. And if I could make guitars only out of blocks that held up old benches, that's what I do. But since that's limited, we look for sources of really reclamation or reuse. So some of the great stories with our mahogany are ones that came from old inventories, boat building, furniture making, even guitar making. And right now I'm preparing a trip back east to reclaim this wood that's in the, I like to say, the dungeon of a cathedral, because it's been there since the 19 teens when they built all the brightwork and altar, and they stored all the wood in the basement. And they called me up asking if I was interested or what to do with it. And that's a dream come true. That's wood is probably from the turn of the previous century. The quality is spectacular. And it not only goes with a great story, but it goes with a story of responsible harvest and use, something that's been loved. And that's the kind of wood that belongs in your guitar. I'm going to say that I'll find out and tell you personally exactly where yours came from, but it's going to be a similar story that goes back at least through a generation or two, and should give you some, should be heartwarming thinking about you now being the steward of this wood and making music out of it and changing the world.
I'm a firm believer in that we don't own instruments. We're the temporary caretakers when you've got a really fine legacy instrument like that, like any Santa Cruz, it's going to be passed down from generations, and it's one of those things that I think it's really we're just the caretakers of things.
That's beautiful. Thank you. It's
And
inspiration.
Your comments, Richard, make me want to go check underneath my workbenches, but I have a sneaky feeling all I'm going to find is some old pressure treated.
Yeah. Yeah.
you can make a plywood. You can make a plywood top base.
The two sections of cork that were supposed to go on your fly rod handle, and you always wondered why it was so short.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it's really been a real pleasure to have Richard come in and I don't want to say validate, but to put the maker and the player together it's special. It's just special. And it's what we're about. We really, this is the story that we want to share. I mean, we're fortunate enough to know a little bit of the inside and the backstory and stuff like that, and we want to share that because pick up the guitar, Adam, and let's see how your body changes again.
There you go.
There's the reason right there.
There
There's the smile right there. There's the reason right there. So, Richard, you can go hubbub and dither around. I know you got about 14 projects going on there today, and Adam's going to tell us about a new lesson that's coming out, and we really, really appreciate your time.
Beautifully. I'm going to go back to the Lutheran cacophony here. And Adam, I love you. I'm so proud that you show us off, while you, as I said, make the world a better place through your music. Keep it up. Come visit, or I'll come see you. And Richard and Ted, love you too. What a great service.
All right,
Bye-bye,
we'll talk
you
soon.
guys.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Richard.
Take care.
Have a
You bet,
blast.
man. See you soon. Thanks
you.
for coming on. Appreciate a few minutes of your day.
The thing that we should say is that probably every guitar that comes out of Santa Cruz would have a similar story, a similar background. And it would be wonderful if we could actually have Richard talk about each guitar with each player, but he doesn't make that many guitars, but it would be a lot of his time. And getting a glimpse into the background, especially with somebody as special as Adam here, and a model guitar as special as the HT13,
And
that was just wonderful.
And I'll tell you, Adam, that Richard wanted to come on.
That means the world to me. I just think so much of him.
He wanted to do it. We gave him a pass on it, and he said, no, I'd really like to see Adam, and I'd really like to be on with Adam. And
that's amazing. That just made my day. Thank you.
that's the guy right there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, totally.
So tell us a little bit about what's coming up.
Yeah, what's new, Adam?
Oh man, I've always been one to never stop moving, and I decided so I've been doing a lot of work with Homespun in doing a lot of editing and doing some lessons for them. And it had been a while since I'd done a lesson, and I was working on a really adventurous 3-video lesson. It's about 6 hours worth of lessons. And just so I don't screw up the title, because we just changed the title not too long ago. It's going to be a 3-part lesson called Mastering Your Scales, Adam Traum's Zone Method of Fretboard Navigation. And so basically what the lesson covers, the first lesson covers 6 keys in these like first 5 frets. And then we do about this little chunk of the neck. And then we, on the third lesson, we do this section of the neck and tie the whole neck together. So it's a really comprehensive meat and potatoes course on scale study. And I work in different positions and, you know, show how chords move. So like, for example, you know, in the first zone, I use this G chord, which is like an F shape moved up. And then the second zone, I do a G up here, and then third zone up there. So it's really, it's a very comprehensive course on scale study, and I have play along tracks that I play along with that are all provided, and I have color coded tab on it, where so you know, where I'm talking a little bit about modes. And you know, my favorite mode is Pyala mode, but the but really it talks about, you know, like really what a mode is, being just, you know, going from the first mode be first note to first note, like that octave. You know, second mode would be using, you know, just talking about how to use those. And it's not really mode centric, but basically, like, so if you're playing a C scale in the key of G, which notes you have to watch out for as your landmines, you know. So it's a very user-friendly course. It's got embedded tablature as I'm playing the scales, so people can see in real time what I'm doing. And then on the play alongs, it's got all the chord changes, so people can do their own play along as I'm doing it. And it's got downloadable tracks to jam with and work on your stuff. So it's a very hands-on, nuts and bolts course that I hope does really well. It was a lot of work and it was a real labor of love, but
so Adam, what level or ability of player would you recommend this course to?
The thing I really like about this course is that it can be anything from a rank beginner to an advanced someone who's been playing for years, but maybe wants just a little more in-depth knowledge of what they're doing.
Okay.
That's yeah, really.
And you know, and eventually, assuming it does well, you know, maybe we'll turn it into a book as well. But right now, I'm delighted to have this video that's coming out, and and it just really, I go into a lot of depth because I wanted people to really understand, get a real comprehensive understanding of the fretboard, and it'll probably be a lot of work for a lot of people for a long time, and it's something people can probably revisit. And then, like, there are in the play along tracks, excuse the highway noise out there, in the play along tracks, there's you know, like I said, it actually has the chord changes, and then I the central theme of that I might be playing in one of my play alongs, like say if it's a lick like this, like something like that, I don't really go into great detail on those licks, but I do sort of show some ideas and say, well, when I did this is what I did. And you can, you know, so the idea was not to just play the scale, but to play the scale, play the chord shapes, the alternate chord voicings that go along with the scales, but then also show how to apply them.
That all sounds good. And then you could have an extra credit session for people who have a cutaway.
Absolutely.
I think if you're familiar with the homespun library at all, I think I have probably 20 titles in my online library, and it's such a great delivery method because I don't stick with one all the time. It's like, what do I want to learn? What do I want to work on today? And do I need to go back and work on this? And I can see where this is. I'm gonna, I can see where I really want to have this, and I can see where I really want to have this for slide. If I'm playing slide in standard tuning, boy, how great to have this map. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously. So I only encourage the viewers, if you haven't tuned into the homespun library yet, it's just massive, and there's so much good stuff on there, and collect them all. Because you really can't make a mistake with something that's on there, and the teachers are players. The teachers aren't, it's not cut and dry. I mean, I'm studying mandolin with somebody right now, and it's a little tough for me. I'm having a hard time with it because it's kind of very, very, very cut and dried. And I'd like to
Right.
be able to move around a little bit more. So I go to the
Right.
Norman Blake, I go to the Norman Blake mandolin homespun, and
I love that lesson. Oh, he's so great. He should be a household name. I love that guy's playing.
yeah, yeah.
Um, it's funny you mentioned about the slide. I never really thought about that application for it, but it totally is a great application.
Yeah, especially in working it in thirds,
Yeah.
because well, you can just plant yourself in one part of the fretboard and go, without having to think about, well, where's that G sharp? I mean, yeah, it's right here, and it's in this third section, or it's in this, and I can voice it like this. I'm excited for that. I mean, that's just especially standard tuning. Look out,
Yeah.
Derek.
Yeah, it's really cool. And like, especially, like using that A shape. I'll grab a slide. I don't know how good this will sound, but yeah, like you're right. So if there's a D shape in our kind of middle zone here, you could totally apply that lesson to that.
Absolutely. Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
So I just, it was a real labor of love, and it took a long time to put together, um, and probably the most work I've done. But I figured I'd go big on this one, and you know and figure that I'd let the chips fall where they may, because it's something I've been passionate about for a long time, and it's something I've been trying to teach my students when I work with them on this stuff, and so ideally it gets through to people, and we have a bunch of people who get to know the whole neck and learn some keys, and like I said, we do 6 keys in it, which is great. So we start out in C, we go to G, C, go to G, we go to D, we go to A, go to E, and then F. So I didn't do any of the flat, I didn't do any of the like G sharp or anything like that, but just there wasn't enough time. I didn't do 12 keys, but I think those 6 keys will give people enough information, that will help them ultimately.
I just throw a capo on, right?
Yeah. As Doc used to say, throw on the cheater.
Well, I think that sounds fantastic. And as I'm listening to it, I'm realizing that's exactly what I've been looking for. So I think you got 2 sales right here now. So, but didn't you say at the beginning it wasn't out quite yet? Of course, assuming that we're recording this ahead of time.
We are a matter of days away from an announcement. It might be out today. You can find it on the homespun site, but it's just not live yet. We're just making sure everything's all good with it. I had to, there was something like 40 or 50 chapters in one of them, and so I just had to make sure all of the chapter titles were right, just doing all the proofing and everything like that. So But it's as good as out. We're waiting on, on a couple of final covers.
By the time this podcast is out and anybody is watching it or listening to it, it'll definitely be available, it sounds like. So
Yeah,
we might as well say it's available now.
It's available now. You can buy it now. You just can't watch it quite yet.
If you're watching this or listening to this podcast, you can watch it now too.
Yeah, you can watch it now too. Yeah, but I have to say I'm proud of the work I did on it, and it's visually, I think, my favorite video. If I would give a shout out to my good friend Mike Lunabis, who is not only an amazing songwriter who I've co-written some really good songs with, but he's a terrific photographer, and he invested a lot of time and effort and money into his studio where I've been shooting up here in Sonoma, and he did a fantastic job on the lighting. And of course, these two instruments look amazing on camera. It looks like art on camera, and so I'm really I'm really happy with the clarity, how it all looks, and the sound is really good. And my buddy Josh Yenny, who I play with a lot, he helped with the backing tracks. He worked with me on that, so it's definitely the success of the way the production values came out on this lesson. I definitely didn't do alone. I had some really good help, and of course my dad and mom and Susan at the home office, always, between helping with the copywriting and being the executive producer, is really I couldn't have done it without them. So like any good project, you don't do something yourself. There's always more than one person who is involved in the success of something coming out well.
It's a long way from the cassette tape and mimeographed cheat sheet days.
A long way, yes. Yeah.
Mimeograph. It's right up there with dither and hubbub.
Yes.
It's our words for the day.
The word of the day is
excellent.
Dither.
There was actually one question I forgot to ask you, Adam.
Yes.
Did your dad sign the label on your guitar, or do you have to take it back east to get that done?
Let's see.
He hasn't checked.
It's on the fretboard. He's
okay.
fretboard. So
okay.
Yeah.
In abalone. Yeah.
Again, mentioning my buddy Josh, he said when he played it, he's a vintage guitar collector, and he was like, "This is maybe the second best guitar I've ever played," and the only other one being an actual Nick Lucas. So high praise. And he goes, "You have to get that guitar. It literally has your name on it."
That's true. I think we know a couple inlay artists that could probably do a little careful work on the neck there and change that to Adam.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm perfectly happy with that, but maybe I'll have them do it on this one, and I can.
Then it would be a hat guitar, an HAT. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Do you guys have any other questions about the lesson, or about and playing, what I've been doing, anything like that?
Well, I was going to ask, do you have any information about stuff that you're going to be doing up in the future? I mean, assuming people are listening to this podcast, later this year, do you have any plans for?
Yeah, I'm playing like my first out of town set of shows. I'm playing at the Woodstock Invitational Luthier Showcase in October. My first time there. I was supposed to do it during and then the pandemic hit, and Baker Rorick is having me play 2 nights or two sets and a workshop. I'm doing a workshop with my dad on 2 guitar jamming, and we're playing a set on Saturday of the festival. he was nice enough to invite me to like a musicians in the round as sort of a welcome concert on Thursday night of the show. So I'm really excited about that. And I've been putting a lot of time into a bunch of different, including this project, and I've in I'm in the process of getting my a music placement publishing company all put together. It's called Merlot Publishing.
Having just done a registered trademark. Holy cow, what a bunch of work.
Yeah, so that's getting my registered trademark done. I'm getting my website built now. I've signed a few really terrific people, including Christy McCarthy, who's a great Santa Cruz artist, or Santa Cruz County artist, and I'm delighted to have her on board. My old friend and bandmate from back in Georgia, Javier Matos, he's probably going to be coming on board. I'm going to be handling my dad's latest release, this one. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but
guitar looks familiar.
Yeah, it's called "There's a Bright Side." I would argue that it's maybe one of his best records. Still, he's continues to be an inspiration. He just he's I think, is he 84 now or something like that. And he just keeps getting better as a player and just never stops moving. And so that's been a real inspiration to me. And so that's been really fun, is just, seeing him continue to thrive, and, gives me hope that my hands will hold out if genetics are any kind of indication. So hopefully I can be getting better if I'm lucky enough to make it out into my 80s, and be continuing to get out and play.
It's a beautifully recorded record. It really, you really feel like you're sitting across the room from them. And I've listened to it in a lot of different environments, and it holds up in the car, and it holds up on my monitors, and it holds up on my computer, and it's just really, really well done. And there's a lot of pretty interesting names on there as well.
Oh yeah, I was lucky enough to play on one track. I played my old National steel guitar for a track. He said, "Can you do something that sort of is reminiscent of Ry Cooder?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And so I sort of did my best to channel Ry, who's, big shoes to fill there, but Ry is, so I just kind of said, what would Ry do? And, and which is what really any of us should say when we're playing guitar.
Probably.
What would Ry do?
What would our inspirations do? That's pretty good.
Yeah, and so that's been happening in my personal life. I recently got my Taekwondo black belt.
Wow.
Which was
impressive.
So I've been teaching at a Taekwondo school here in Sonoma a few days a week for me and my son's tuition. My son is a second degree black belt, and I kind of started after him during the pandemic. We found a great school that we were doing online lessons with, and then they opened up at a yoga studio, and then they moved to their own building. And so I'm really, it's nice to have a little bit of balance in my life. And so in addition to still being an avid swimmer, I get to do Taekwondo a few days, like 4 days a week or something. So it was a really cool thing to get to test, and be able to say, hey, a middle-aged guy can still go out and learn new things and do new things.
You give me hope.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I wish I were middle-aged. That would give me hope.
Me too.
I'm creeping up on not being middle-aged. I'm creeping up on just being old. The AARP's been getting on my case saying, don't you want to join?
No.
It's funny. You turn 50. The second you turn 50, the AARP is like on you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wait till you turn 70.
Oh yeah. Of course now I'm shopping at the local markets on Tuesday because I get a discount because I'm old.
Yep. It's called, we call it a wisdom discount.
Oh yes, the wisdom discount.
It's not an old guy's discount. It's a wisdom discount now. I'm for that. I am, I just want to get the new lesson. I don't want to think about anything else here. I just want to get my teeth into that for a couple of days and see how that's going. It's brilliant idea.
Yeah.
How
Oh,
long,
thanks.
how did you script it out, or did you just kind of, as you were doing it, kind of went, oh, that's the next step? I mean, with something this big, it sounds like you'd almost have to script it.
I didn't have an actual script, um, but I did a lot of planning and put in a lot of work and worked off my tablature and did a lot of off-camera rehearsing to really make sure that things were very clear and that I didn't start ambling on and taking some detour that was going to distract people. I was really focused about what I wanted to do. I knew what I wanted to accomplish with the lesson, and I knew that it was important to be really clear and really focused on what I was doing because it's such an intensive subject and like when you're changing keys, so like say for example when it went from C to G, like changing keys and making sure that like you were hitting the right accidentals and stuff like that, like it took a lot of focus, and the editing process was pretty heavy. With my play alongs, I wanted to make sure I had good solid ideas kind of developed beforehand. um, and and I spent a lot of time just really making sure that my chops were in shape because it was actually a very physically demanding and mentally demanding shoot because I was putting in long days and making sure that everything was really clear and correct, and doing three lessons, a three lesson set, you can't just sit down and do it in a day. I shot it over the course of about a week, so I had to do my best to sort of make sure my continuity was there, and it's not 100% there, but it's there enough, I think, that it won't be
So,
an issue.
so give people a quick idea. How many hours would you say you spent preparing to do the video? How many hours of video did you shoot to get edited down to what ultimately became the lesson? I mean, give people an idea of just how much work these lessons are.
I probably all told have hundreds of hours into this lesson. um, between working on the play along tracks, working on the tablature, which I did, um, doing sort of my rehearsals, my off camera rehearsals, and then shooting it was probably 15 hours of shooting, between breaks and starts and stops, and then the editing itself was very labor intensive. So I put most lessons that I shoot, I sort of will play a couple songs and tab out the little solos or whatever, or we'll send them off to have them transcribed if they're more detailed. But this one, I knew it was going to be a big job. I knew it was going to be intensive. I knew at some point I was going to be kicking myself for taking it on. But like I said, I think all the hard work really paid off when I was looking at the 6 hours worth of lessons, roughly 6 hours give or take, of lessons, and seeing how great it looked to me, how clear it was, the quality of the sound, um, the clarity of the lesson. So all the hard work was worth it, but it was this particular lesson was a massive amount of work to really have it turn out the way I wanted to.
I think that's the part that a lot of people don't understand, is just how much work you put in as a teacher, as a video artist, as an editor, as everything else, in order to create what ends up looking like a very simple, production. Here's how to play guitar. But it's never that simple. And
Never.
yeah.
And there's always a glitch, or like we just, as an example, I thought it was a really good decision. My folks were talking about the color coding system, and I had one set of colors for my notes for my tablature, and they were like, well, I don't think you can see it as well. And so I ended up I sort of took this deep breath and went, really? And then, but then I thought it was, then looking at the point, I realized that it was actually a really good suggestion, and I think it will be, and the different colors that I came up with, I think will really made a big difference. And so it was, and so I think it was worth it, so it was things like that where, we really wanted to make it right and do it correctly. And I think, and I feel like that's a big part of the end product, was just the fact that we really did it right.
You kind of hate it when your folks have this idea that has to alter everything that you've been working on, and then you have to admit, oh, damn, they're right.
Is there a tab program tab creation program that you use, or?
Yeah, I do this great, I believe it's a Hal Leonard product. It's called Note Flight. And it's great because I can do it. I have all my files online.
Yeah.
It's all, I guess, cloud-based or something. So like I can literally go in and just adjust things and save it. And, with my students, one of my students, I recently taught a song by, oh shoot, totally of course, I'm drawing a blank on the track now. It's a track called Redbone that was done by Donald Glover. And so I was able to, with this track, to to tab out the lead line. Like it has this lead line that goes something like, so it's got that line. So I'm able now to just, it lives there on Note Flight, and I can just print it out whenever I want if a student is learning that song.
Wow.
Cool. And I can do the same thing with scales. So it's a nice tab program. I'm not bagging on the program because it's very user friendly, but there are some limitations with it as well, like with anything. So it's I'm obviously happy with the program, but if there's any like real encoding or transcribing to do, a program like Finale is going to be a little bit more in depth. But for my just basic use, the Note Flight is really good.
You're playing a guitar, not an orchestra.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, I think that's been great hearing about all this and talking with you. I look forward to actually getting together with you sometime up in Sonoma. Maybe we can get Richard up there too, both Richards.
Let's do it, man. Let's have lunch in Sonoma, or I'll meet you guys halfway. We'll meet in Larkspur or something.
Okay. We'll see what we can put together.
We can attack. We can make an invasion of Schoenberg's guitar store or something.
Oh yeah, you can take your HT13 in and make everybody rethink that vintage that they were looking at.
Exactly. Sorry, people, it's not for sale.
Yeah. So I think we want to tell everybody that there will be a number of links in the SCGCPF, that's the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum website, to everything that Adam's talked about. And of course, you can get more information on the HT13 at the Santa Cruz Guitar Company website. We want to thank Richard Hoover, who is no longer with us in this podcast, but we were very glad to have him show up at the beginning. We especially want to thank Adam for giving us a heads up on these lessons that he's putting out. I'm excited. It literally sounds like exactly what I've been looking for. So my wife will have to put up with lots more of my sitting in the living room playing guitar. Makes me happy.
I do my best to annoy wives and husbands. Well, thanks so much for having me on, you guys. I really appreciate you making some time for me and helping get the word out and just serving the guitar community in general. It's a wonderful service that you guys provide for people. So thanks.
You know, every one of them, you're welcome, and every one of them is special. We just try to go into it with an open mind. You know, we try to go into it without really a big bunch of prep, and we find some rabbit holes sometimes, for sure. But God, it was great to have Richard on today.
Oh, what a treat! It just, like I said, totally made my day. I love that guy. He's amazing.
Yeah, we're probably the exact opposite of a homespun lesson, aren't we? We just
yeah, we're just loose and goose and let's see where it goes. You know, let's see what happens here.
Hey, man, works for me.
Yeah, Adam, thank you so much.
All right, thanks you guys.
So
have
much.
A great one.
You too. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this installment of the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. For more music-related fun, please join the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF or santacruzguitarplayers.com. If you have any questions or possible podcast topics, please contact us. If you have a product or service that you feel would be of value to our listeners, please consider adding your support and keeping the coffee pot on. Contact us for more information. We ask that you hit the like, follow, bell, or bookmark buttons so we can keep you informed of upcoming podcast episodes. We hope you enjoyed Santa Cruz Coffee Break. Now it's time to go play your guitar.